The blast of an explosion shattered the routine of a man who only wanted to get to work on time to change his destiny. In seconds, he risked everything to save a stranger from the flames. But what seemed like just another sacrifice was only the beginning of something he could never have imagined. Part 1. Michael Johnson clenched his fists as he stared at the crumpled envelope on the kitchen table. Eviction notice for non-payment. The words danced before his tired eyes like sharp daggers. At 34, he had lost so many things that he no longer remembered what it felt like to have hope. His wife, Carol, had died 2 years ago, leaving him alone with their 8-year-old daughter, Anna, and a mountain of medical debt that was drowning him day after day. "Dad, why are you crying?" Anna's sweet voice brought him back to reality. Her big brown eyes, identical to Carol's, looked at him with that strange wisdom that only children who have grown up too fast possess. Michael wiped away the tears he hadn't known had started to fall. "I'm not crying, sweetheart, I'm just thinking." "Are you thinking about Mom?" Michael's heart broke a little more. "I always think about Mom, Princess." It was true. Carol had been his entire world. A nurse at City Hospital with a smile that could light up the darkest of days. When the cancer came, she fought like the warrior she had always been, but the disease was stronger than her will to live. The last few months had been a hell of expensive treatments and broken hopes. Michael looked at the clock. 7 a.m. In 2 hours, he needed to be at the Rosales Corporation for his interview as a janitorial supervisor. It was an opportunity he couldn't afford to lose. Better pay, medical benefits for Anna, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to climb out of the financial hole they had fallen into. He said goodbye to Anna with a kiss on her forehead and walked to the bus stop. The streets of Charlotte were more congested than usual, and traffic moved like thick molasses. Michael watched his reflection in the bus window, prematurely graying black hair, deep circles under his eyes, calloused hands from years of working as a night janitor. He didn't look like the kind of man who had once been an accountant for a medium-sized company before everything fell apart. The bus stopped abruptly. A metallic crash made all the passengers look out the window. 50 yards away, a black Ford was smoking after crashing into a light pole. The engine was making strange sounds, and small flames were starting to emerge from the engine bay. Without a second thought, Michael stood up from his seat. "Sir, don't get off," the bus driver shouted. "It's dangerous." But Michael had already jumped out of the vehicle. His legs moved on instinct, just like the night he had run to the hospital when Carol collapsed at home. This time, however, he could do something. The woman inside the Ford was conscious but trapped. Her seatbelt was stuck, and the flames from the engine were growing dangerously. Michael could see her face through the cracked glass. Fair skin, black hair pulled back in an elegant bun, but most of all, green eyes filled with pure panic. "Don't move!" Michael shouted as he circled the vehicle, looking for the best way to get in. The driver's door was completely crumpled, but the passenger door seemed functional. Michael tapped on the window. "Ma'am, lean your body this way." The woman obeyed, and Michael managed to open the door. The smoke was getting thicker, and the heat was intensifying. With expert hands, the same ones that had cared for Carol during so many nights in the hospital, Michael worked on the stuck belt. "Are you hurt?" he asked as his fingers fought with the belt mechanism. "No, I don't think so," she replied in a shaky voice. It was the first time Michael had heard her voice, and he was surprised at how clear and elegant it sounded, even in the midst of terror. The seatbelt finally gave way. Michael grabbed her by the arms and helped her out of the vehicle just as the flames spread to the interior. They both fell onto the sidewalk, she on top of him, gasping for breath from the smoke and adrenaline. For a moment, their eyes met. Hers, green, astonished and grateful. His, brown, concerned and gentle. It was only a second, but Michael felt something he hadn't experienced since Carol's death. A real, intense, unexpected human connection. "Are you okay?" Michael helped her to her feet, noticing for the first time her elegant black business suit and designer shoes that probably cost more than 2 months of his salary. "Yes, thanks to you." She dusted herself off and looked him up and down. Michael realized what he must look like. Worn-out jeans, a cheap cotton t-shirt, scuffed work shoes. 2 completely different worlds. "Victoria Vance," she introduced herself, extending her hand. A soft hand without calluses, with perfectly manicured nails. "Michael Johnson," he replied, suddenly feeling ashamed of his rough working hands. Victoria seemed to study his face. You risked your life for a complete stranger." Michael shrugged. Anyone would have done the same. "No," she said firmly, "that's not true. Look," she pointed to the street where dozens of people had stopped to watch, but none had lifted a finger to help. "You're different." The sound of sirens was getting closer. Michael looked at his watch and felt his stomach sink. 8:30. His interview was at 9, and he was 20 minutes away if traffic cooperated. "I have to go," he murmured, taking a step back. "Wait." Victoria rummaged through her purse, which had miraculously survived the accident. "I need to compensate you in some way." "I don't need anything," Michael said, starting to walk away. "I'm just glad you're okay. At least tell me where I can find you." But Michael was already running toward the bus stop, his mind desperately calculating if he still had any chance of getting to the interview that could change his life on time. Victoria stood on the sidewalk, watching Michael disappear into the crowd. Paramedics arrived and routinely checked her, confirming she had no serious injuries. The police took her statement. The fire truck extinguished the flames that had completely consumed her Ford. But Victoria couldn't stop thinking about Michael's eyes. There was something in them, a deep sadness, but also a genuine kindness that she rarely saw in her world of ambitious entrepreneurs and calculating executives. At 30, Victoria Vance was the youngest CEO in the history of the Rosales Corporation, the empire she had inherited from her late father 5 years ago. Since then, she had turned the family business into one of the most successful corporations in the American Midwest. But success had come with a price: absolute loneliness. The men around her saw her as a conquest, a way to access her fortune. The women envied or feared her. The employees respected her but kept their distance. Her extended family only visited when they needed money. It had been years since she had felt a genuine human connection. Until this moment. Until this man with sad eyes, who had risked his life without expecting anything in return. The tow truck arrived to take away the remains of her Ford. Victoria got into the taxi she had called, but instead of giving her office address, she surprised herself by saying, "To City Hospital, please." She didn't know why she had chosen that destination, maybe because she needed a moment to process what had happened. Or maybe because something about Michael had reminded her that good people existed in the world, people who risked everything for strangers without expecting a reward. During the ride to the hospital, Victoria closed her eyes and relived every second of the rescue, the determination on Michael's face, the gentleness of his hands when he helped her out of the car, the way he had rejected any compensation. When was the last time someone had done something for her without a hidden agenda? Her phone rang. "Ms. Vance, are you all right?" It was her personal assistant, Liam. "We saw the news about the accident." "I'm fine, Liam, but cancel my morning appointments." "Do you need me to call your personal doctor?" "No, I need you to look into something." Victoria took a deep breath. "I want you to find all the information you can about a man named Michael Johnson. Approximately 35 years old, lives in Charlotte, probably has some kind of working-class job." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Ma'am, he's the man who saved my life this morning. And Liam, I want to know everything about him." As the taxi pulled up to City Hospital, Victoria realized that for the first time in years, she felt something akin to genuine curiosity. Michael Johnson had appeared in her life like an unexpected hurricane, and she had the strange feeling that her world was about to change forever. Unbeknownst to her, at that very same hour, Michael Johnson was sitting in the waiting room of the Rosales Corporation, his heart pounding because he had arrived 40 minutes late for the most important interview of his life. What neither of them imagined was that in a few hours their destinies would intertwine in a way that would change everything they thought they knew about love, hope, and second chances. As a single dad who fights every day to give his daughter a better future, would you have had the courage to risk everything to save a stranger? Tell me in the comments where you're listening to this story from. Part 2. 3 days after the accident, Michael reported to his new job at the Rosales Corporation. The interview had been a disaster, arriving late, smelling of smoke, explaining that he had saved someone from a burning car. But miraculously, they had hired him. The supervisor had told him they needed people with initiative, although Michael suspected they just desperately needed hands. His first day started at 5 in the morning, cleaning the executive floors before the important people arrived. Michael knew this routine well. Invisible, silent, efficient. He was the ghost who kept the corporate world running without anyone noticing his existence. As he mopped the floor on the 22nd level, he heard voices approaching down the main hallway. A clear, authoritative female voice was giving instructions about a meeting with Japanese investors. Michael immediately recognized that elegant tone, even without the panic that had colored it 3 days earlier. He turned slowly, and there she was. Victoria Vance was walking toward him in a pearl gray business suit, heels clicking against the marble, and that same commanding presence he had noticed even in the middle of the accident. But when their eyes met, she stopped abruptly, as if she had seen a ghost. "Michael?" she whispered, and for a moment, all her executive composure vanished. The three men accompanying her, obviously high-level executives, also stopped, confused by their boss's reaction. Michael felt his throat go dry. "Good morning, Ms. Vance. Do you two know each other?" One of the executives, an older man with a grey mustache who Michael recognized as the company's CFO, asked. Victoria took a moment to reply, studying Michael's face as if trying to solve a complex puzzle. "He's the man who saved my life 3 days ago." The executives exchanged surprised glances. Michael felt all eyes on him and wished he could disappear. This wasn't his world. He was just the man who cleaned the floors. "I need to speak with you," Victoria said, addressing Michael directly. "In private." "Ma'am, I have to finish cleaning this area before 7, Michael murmured, clutching his mop as if it were a life raft. "The floor can wait." Her tone allowed no argument. "Gentlemen, please continue with the meeting preparations. I'll see you in my office in 20 minutes. The executives walked away, whispering among themselves. Michael was left alone with Victoria in the empty hallway, feeling like a fish out of water. "Why didn't you tell me you worked here?" she asked, crossing her arms. "You didn't ask." Michael avoided her gaze. "Besides, I didn't know who you were that day." "And now you do?" Michael nodded slowly. "Victoria Vance, CEO of the Rosales Corporation. Your photo is in the lobby." She took a step closer. "Does that change anything?" "Everything." Michael finally looked her in the eyes. "You're the owner of all this. I'm just a nobody. The man who risked his life for me is not a nobody." Her voice softened. "Tell me about yourself, Michael. For real." Michael took a deep breath. For some reason, the words started to come out without him being able to stop them. "I was an accountant for 10 years. I had my own small office, regular clients. When my wife got sick, I sold everything to pay for the treatments. After she died, the debts were so big I had to declare bankruptcy." Victoria listened without interrupting, without the judgment Michael expected to see in her eyes. "Now I work at night cleaning offices. During the day I do landscaping jobs. On weekends I deliver food, all to support my daughter Anna." "How old is Anna?" Victoria asked, and Michael noticed something different in her voice. Softer, more human. 8 years old. She's all I have left of Carol." Michael's eyes involuntarily welled up. "She's the smartest girl in the world. She loves to read. She draws like a professional artist. And she has this way of seeing the good in everything, even when things are bad." "Is she in school now?" Michael nodded. "Public school. It's not the best, but it's what I can afford, although—" He stopped, wondering why he was telling this woman so much. Although what? "The teachers say Anna could be in a school for gifted children, but those schools cost more than I make in 3 months." Michael shrugged. "Someday, maybe." Victoria was silent for a moment. Then she asked, "What does Anna want to be when she grows up?" A genuine smile lit up Michael's face for the first time in the conversation. "A doctor. She says she's going to find the cure for cancer, so no dad has to be sad like me." The impact of those words was visible on Victoria. She stood very still, as if she had been hit physically. "Ms. Vance, are you okay?" She recovered quickly, but Michael had noticed the momentary vulnerability in her eyes. "Yes, Anna sounds like an extraordinary girl." "She is." Paternal pride filled Michael's voice. "She's the reason I do all this. The reason I take jobs that are way below my education. The reason I—" He stopped, realizing he was about to admit something very personal. "The reason you what?" "The reason I saved a stranger instead of going to my job interview," Michael finished quietly. "Anna taught me that helping others is always the right thing to do, no matter the personal cost." Victoria's phone vibrated insistently. She ignored it the first 3 times, but finally answered. "What's up, Liam?" "Ms. Vance, the Japanese investors arrived early. They're waiting in the boardroom." Victoria looked at Michael, then her watch. "I'll be there in 5 minutes." She hung up the phone and turned back to Michael. "I have to go, but this conversation isn't over." "Ma'am, with all due respect, I think it is over." Michael picked up his mop. "You have a world to run. I have floors to clean. We both know there's nothing more to say. Why are you so determined to keep your distance?" Michael looked her directly in the eyes. "Because I've learned that hope hurts more than resignation, and because Anna has already lost enough. She doesn't need to see her dad chasing impossibilities." Victoria took a step toward him. "What if it's not impossible?" "What do you mean?" "I mean that maybe there are ways we can help each other." She paused, as if making an important decision. "Would you be willing to have dinner with me tonight? Not as boss and employee, as people." Michael looked at her in disbelief. "Why would you do that?" "Because in 30 years no one has ever risked anything for me without expecting something in return, and because there's something about you." She stopped, searching for the right words. "Something that makes me remember that genuine people exist in the world." "I can't." "Anna, bring Anna," Victoria said immediately. "I'd like to meet the girl who inspired so much kindness in her father." Michael was speechless. This powerful woman, this CEO who probably had dinner with ministers and billionaires, wanted to meet his 8-year-old daughter. "I don't know if that's a good idea," Michael finally said. "Anna asks a lot of questions, and I'm not sure I can explain." "Explain what? Why a woman like you would want to spend time with people like us?" Victoria felt a pang of pain at those words. "People like you, poor people," Michael said bluntly. "Anna is smart. She's going to notice the difference between us and you. She's going to ask questions I don't know how to answer. Then let's tell her the truth, that we're friends." "Are we friends?" Michael looked at her skeptically. "I'd like us to be." The honesty in Victoria's voice surprised him. "Michael, I don't have any real friends. The people around me want something from me. My money, my power, my connections. You're the first person in years who has treated me like just a person." Victoria's phone rang again. This time the voice on the other end was clearly irritated. "Ms. Vance, the Japanese are asking if—" "Tell them there was a family emergency, and I'll be there in 2 minutes," Victoria interrupted. "And Liam, I want you to book a table for 3 at the Copper Kettle for 7 o'clock tonight." "For 3? "Yes. And make it a table in a private section, but not too formal. Something family-friendly." She hung up and looked at Michael expectantly. "So?" Michael fought with himself. Every instinct told him to keep his distance, to protect Anna from a world that wasn't for them. But there was something in Victoria's eyes, a loneliness he recognized because he saw it in the mirror every morning. "A dinner," he finally said. "But if Anna feels uncomfortable at any point, we're leaving." "Of course." Victoria smiled, and Michael realized it was the first genuine smile he had seen on her face. "The Copper Kettle at 7. It's a quiet family-style restaurant. Anna will feel comfortable." "How do you know what will make Anna comfortable?" Victoria paused, and for a moment Michael saw a shadow of sadness cross her face. "Because I remember what it was like to be a little girl in a world I didn't understand." That afternoon, as Michael picked Anna up from school, his daughter immediately noticed that something had changed. "Dad, why are you nervous?" Anna asked as they walked home. "Who says I'm nervous? You have that wrinkle on your forehead that you get when you're worried, and you're walking faster than usual." Anna stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. "Is something bad happening? Did you lose the new job?" Michael knelt down to his daughter's level. "I didn't lose the job. In fact, remember I told you about the lady I helped the other day? The one from the accident?" Anna nodded solemnly. "The lady who almost got burned. It turns out she works at the same place I do, and she invited us to dinner tonight." Anna's eyes lit up. "Really? Why?" "Because she wants to meet you. And because—" Michael paused, searching for the right words. "Because sometimes good people find each other when they need it most." "Does she need friends, Dad?" Anna's perception always surprised him. "I think so, sweetheart." "Then we're going to be her friends." Anna took Michael's hand with determination. "Mom always said that sad people need more love, not less." As they walked home to get ready, Michael couldn't help but wonder what he was getting himself into. Victoria Vance was the kind of woman who appeared in society magazines, not the kind who had dinner with janitors and 8-year-old girls in patched-up shoes. But there was something in her eyes, something familiar and broken, that told him maybe Anna was right. Maybe Victoria needed friends more than she needed employees. And maybe, just maybe, this dinner wasn't the monumental mistake his head was telling him it was. What Michael didn't know was that in her office, Victoria was having similar thoughts, looking out the window at the city she controlled, but which had never made her feel less alone. For the first time in years, she had accepted a social invitation that had nothing to do with business. And for the first time in years, she was afraid of something she couldn't control. The possibility that these two good people might see through all her defenses and discover how empty her life had become. Part 3. The Copper Kettle turned out to be exactly what Victoria had promised. A family-style restaurant with red and white checkered tablecloths, soft blues music playing in the background, and the aroma of barbecue sauce floating in the air. Michael was relieved to see it wasn't one of those pretentious places where Anna would feel out of place. Victoria was already sitting at a corner table when they arrived. She had changed out of her business suit into dark jeans and a simple white blouse, but she still looked elegant in a way that Michael could never match. What surprised him most was how nervous she seemed. "You must be Anna," Victoria said, standing up as they approached the table. Anna shyly hid behind Michael's legs, which was unusual for a girl who was normally very outgoing. Michael put a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Anna, this is Ms. Victoria, the lady I told you about." Anna slowly came out of her hiding place and studied Victoria with those big, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Did the accident hurt a lot?" Victoria knelt down to Anna's level. "Yes, I was very scared. But your dad was very brave, and he helped me. Dad always helps people, Anna said proudly. Mom said he has the heart of a hero. Michael saw something soften in Victoria's face at the mention of Carol. Your mom was right. Are you also a doctor like I want to be? Anna asked as they sat down. No, I'm a businesswoman. I run a company. Does that mean you're my dad's boss? Victoria looked at Michael, who nodded slightly. Yes, but tonight we're just friends having dinner. The waitress approached, and Victoria ordered for all three of them without looking at the menu, something that immediately put Michael on guard. But when the food arrived, burgers, grilled cheese, and fresh fries, he realized she had ordered exactly what Anna would have asked for. How did you know what we liked? Anna asked, happily biting into her grilled cheese. I guessed, Victoria said with a mysterious smile. Was my guess right? Perfect. Anna wiped her hands and then, to Michael's surprise, moved closer to Victoria. Can I ask you a personal question? Michael almost choked on his burger. Anna, it's okay, Victoria said, genuinely curious. What do you want to know? Why are you sad? Victoria's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. How do you know I'm sad? You have the same eyes Dad had after Mom died. Like you see pretty things, but you can't feel them. Anna tilted her head. Did you lose someone important too? Michael felt he should intervene, but something in Victoria's expression stopped him. There was a raw vulnerability on her face that he hadn't seen before. Yes, Victoria said softly. I lost someone very important a long time ago. Your mum or your dad? My little sister. The words came out so low that Michael had to lean in to hear them. Her name was Carol, just like your mum. Anna put her grilled cheese down and placed her small hand on Victoria's. What did she die from? Anna, those are very personal questions, Michael murmured, but Victoria shook her head. She didn't die, Victoria said, looking directly into Anna's eyes. She got lost. When I was 15 and she was 5, we went to the park one day, and I was on the phone with a boy I liked. I wasn't watching her like I should have been. When I hung up, she was gone. Silence stretched over the table. Michael felt he had just witnessed something deeply intimate, a confession Victoria had probably never made out loud. They never found her? Anna asked with the seriousness that only children who have faced real loss possess. No, the police looked for months. My parents… Victoria stopped, taking a deep breath. My parents never forgave me. My dad died of a heart attack 5 years later, and I always thought it was because his heart broke from looking for Carol for so long. My mum moved to Europe after the funeral and we haven't spoken in years. Michael began to understand why Victoria had been so lonely, why she had built those high walls around her life. That's why you work so hard, Anna said, with a perception that surprised both adults. So you don't have to think about her not being there. Victoria nodded, tears threatening to fall. That's why I work so hard. That's why I don't have a family of my own. That's why… She stopped, looking at Michael. That's why when your dad risked his life for me, I couldn't understand it. Because I let something terrible happen to the person I loved most in the world. But you were just a kid, Michael said softly. It wasn't your fault. My head knows that. But my heart… Victoria touched her chest. My heart has never believed it. Anna got down from her chair and walked around the table to hug Victoria. My mom told me, before she died, that broken hearts can heal if you fill them with new love. Not love that replaces the old, but love that sits beside it. Victoria hugged Anna as if she were a life raft, and Michael saw silent tears running down her cheeks. After dinner, they walked around the town square. Anna ran ahead, chasing pigeons and laughing, completely oblivious to the emotionally charged moment that had happened at the restaurant. Thank you, Victoria said when they were alone. For what? For letting Anna be herself. For not trying to silence her when she asked difficult questions. Victoria looked at him in profile. For not judging me. There's nothing to judge, Michael said honestly. I just see a woman who has carried a guilt that doesn't belong to her for too long. They stopped near the central fountain. Anna had found other kids and was playing with them under the watchful eyes of their parents. Have you ever wondered if Carol would have wanted you to live this way? Michael asked softly. Alone, punishing yourself. Victoria turned to him. Have you ever wondered if your Carol would have wanted you to settle for jobs that are below your potential? The question hit him like a punch to the stomach. That's different. Is it? We're both wasting our lives because of a guilt that doesn't belong to us. Victoria took a step closer. You feel guilty because you couldn't save your wife. I feel guilty because I couldn't protect my sister. But continuing to punish ourselves isn't going to bring them back. Michael looked at her, seeing for the first time not the powerful CEO, but the 15-year-old girl who had lost her little sister and never forgiven herself. What do you propose? He asked. I don't know, Victoria admitted, But for the first time in 15 years when I'm with you and Anna, I don't feel alone, and I think you don't either." It was true. For the first time since Carol's death, Michael had allowed himself to feel something other than basic survival. Victoria's phone rang abruptly, breaking the moment. She looked at the screen and frowned. "Liam, it's too late for— Miss Vance, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's a situation." Her assistant's voice sounded tense. "Robert Vance just called an extraordinary board meeting for tomorrow morning." Victoria stiffened. "On what pretext?" "He wants to discuss irregularities in recent hiring decisions and the need to evaluate the company's current leadership." Michael saw all the warmth drain from Victoria's face, replaced by a cold, calculating mask. "How did he find out?" she asked. "I'm not sure, but there are rumors that someone told him about your interaction with the janitor." Michael felt cold water being thrown on him. "Are they talking about me?" Victoria covered the phone's microphone. "Robert Vance is my uncle, my father's younger brother. He never accepted that Dad left the company to me instead of giving it to him. He's been waiting for any excuse to challenge my leadership." "Liam," she continued, speaking on the phone, "what else do you know? Apparently someone took photos of you two having dinner tonight, and there are stories circulating about favoritism, about how you hired someone who was late for his interview just because he saved you." Victoria closed her eyes. "Who else will be at the meeting?" "The entire board. And Vance brought in some minority shareholders who have been restless about the last quarter's numbers." "I understand. Prepare all the financial reports from the last year. And Liam, find out who could have taken those photos." She hung up the phone and turned to Michael, who had been listening to every word with growing horror. "I'm sorry," Michael said immediately. "I shouldn't have agreed to come. I shouldn't have—" "No," Victoria interrupted him firmly. "Don't apologize for being good. Don't apologize for making me remember what it feels like to be human. But your job, your company, they're important, but they're not everything." Victoria took Michael's hands in hers. "For the first time in years, I feel like I'm living instead of just existing. I'm not going to apologize for that." Anna ran up to them, her cheeks flushed from playing. "Are we going now, Ms. Victoria, do you want to come to our house? We can watch a movie." Victoria looked at Michael, and in her eyes he saw a silent question. Despite everything they had just discovered, despite the complications ahead, there was something between them that neither wanted to let go of. "I'd love to," Victoria said, "but only if your dad agrees." Michael knew he should say no. He knew that every minute he spent with Victoria was pulling him deeper into a world that wasn't for him. But when he looked at her, with her newly exposed vulnerability, with her willingness to risk everything for a real connection, he couldn't find the words to turn her down. "A movie," he finally said. "But tomorrow we have to talk about what this means for both of us." As they walked toward Victoria's car, she took his hand. It was a simple gesture, but Michael felt as if he had just crossed a line from which there would be no turning back. "No matter what happens tomorrow," Victoria whispered, "I want you to know that tonight has been the most real night I've had in 15 years. He stopped, turned her toward him, and in a moment of pure impulsiveness, he kissed her. It was soft, tentative, filled with years of loneliness and the fragile promise of something new. When they parted, Victoria smiled for the first time that night. "It's definitely worth the risk." But as they got into the car, neither of them saw the camera that had been following them all night, nor the man who was operating it from the shadows. Have you ever had to choose between protecting your heart and risking everything for love? When the outside world threatens what you've just found, do you fight or do you give up? Share your experience from wherever you are following this story that is just beginning. Part 4. Michael arrived at work at 5 in the morning as usual, but this time everything felt different. The taste of Victoria's kiss still lingered on his lips, and for the first time in 2 years, he had slept without nightmares about Carol. Anna had been radiant during the movie the night before, snuggled between him and Victoria on the couch, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. But reality hit him as soon as he entered the building. The security guards looked at him strangely. The cleaning supervisor, Joe, approached him with a worried expression. "Michael, man, you need to be careful today," Joe murmured as he pretended to check the cleaning equipment. "There are some really nasty rumors going around. They're saying you're with the boss." "Who's saying that?" "Everyone. Someone took photos of you guys last night. They're being passed from phone to phone." Joe looked nervously toward the elevators. "And there's a big meeting this morning. The kind of meeting that spells trouble for someone." Michael felt his stomach churn. "What kind of photos? You guys having dinner, walking, and—" Joe paused uncomfortably. "The kiss, man. They captured everything." Just then, the elevator doors opened, and Victoria got out, dressed in her most formal battle suit, black, impeccable, intimidating. But Michael could see the tension in her shoulders, the forced way she held her chin up. Their eyes met for a second before she looked away and walked directly toward her office, followed by her assistant Liam, who was carrying a stack of documents. "This is going to get ugly," Joe murmured, "and you're right in the middle of it." At 9 in the morning, Michael was cleaning the executive floor hallways when voices began to filter from the boardroom. He couldn't help but listen. The voices grew louder with each passing minute. "It's a scandal." The hoarse voice belonged to an older man Michael recognized as Robert Vance, Victoria's uncle, the CEO of this company, having dinner and kissing the janitor. "What are our Japanese clients going to think when they see these photos on social media?" "My personal life is not the board's business," Victoria replied in a controlled but firm voice. "Your personal life becomes the board's business when it affects the company's reputation," another man shouted. "Hiring your boyfriend for a position he doesn't deserve is nepotism in its most basic form." "Michael Johnson was hired because he has the necessary qualifications," Victoria countered. "He was an accountant." Robert's mocking laugh was heard. "And now he cleans floors? What kind of professional man accepts that?" "He's using you, Victoria, it's obvious." Michael felt as if he had been slapped. He moved closer to the door, unable to walk away. "How you don't know Michael," Victoria said, and Michael could hear the contained emotion in her voice. "He's the most honorable man I've ever met." "Honorable?" Robert's laugh was cruel. "Look into him a little more, niece. Your honorable Michael has some interesting secrets." The silence that followed was deafening. Michael felt his blood run cold. "What are you talking about?" Victoria asked, and for the first time her voice sounded insecure. "Liam," Robert ordered, "show my niece what you found." Michael heard the sound of papers being passed across the table. "Michael Johnson," Liam read in a hesitant voice, "was investigated by the police in connection with the disappearance of Carol Johnson, his wife, 2 years ago. Although he was never arrested, there are inconsistencies in his story about the night she died." Michael's world stopped. He could hear his heart pounding in his ears as the voices continued from the boardroom. "That's impossible," Victoria said, but her voice had lost all its previous strength. "Read it all, Liam," Robert ordered with cruel satisfaction. "Carol Johnson officially died of complications from cancer," Liam continued, clearly uncomfortable. "But her family filed a complaint with the police, alleging that Michael had been pressuring her to reject more treatments because he could no longer afford them. There are testimonies from neighbors who heard loud arguments the week before her death." "Stop!" Victoria's voice sounded desperate. "There's more," Robert added relentlessly. "Michael had taken out a life insurance policy for Carol 6 months before her death, a substantial policy for someone in his financial situation." Michael closed his eyes, remembering that terrible time. It was true that he had fought with Carol about the treatments, but not because of money. She was suffering, deteriorating day by day, and he had wanted her to consider palliative care instead of more chemotherapy that was only prolonging her agony. The life insurance had been Carol's idea. She wanted to secure Anna's future. But he knew how it all sounded from the outside. He knew why Carol's family had been suspicious. "And finally," Liam added in an almost inaudible voice, "there's a psychiatric report that suggests Michael Johnson suffers from a savior complex, possibly developed as a guilt mechanism. His rescue of Victoria could have been a calculated act to get closer to her." The silence in the boardroom spread like poison. Michael backed away from the door, feeling nauseous. Everything was turning out exactly as he had feared from the very first moment he saw Victoria. His dirty past was contaminating the first beautiful thing he had found in years. "Victoria," Robert said with false gentleness, "I understand you feel lonely. I understand you're looking for companionship, but this man is clearly an opportunist who saw your vulnerability and exploited it." "I want to talk to him," Victoria said firmly. "What for? So he can manipulate you more?" Robert sighed dramatically. "Look, niece, this can be resolved discreetly. We fire the employee, you make a public statement about maintaining appropriate professional boundaries, and this whole scandal disappears." Michael didn't wait to hear more. He went directly to the elevator and went up to Victoria's floor. He needed to talk to her before Robert completely poisoned her mind against him. When the elevator doors opened on the executive floor, Victoria was there waiting, as if she had known he would come. Her face was pale, her eyes red but dry. "Is it true?" she asked without preamble. "Part of it." Michael moved closer, but she instinctively stepped back. The gesture cut him deeper than any accusation. "Victoria, I can explain. You pressured her to stop treatment. She was suffering. The doctors said she had weeks, maybe days. The chemotherapy was only making her more miserable." Michael felt tears burning his eyes. "I suggested she consider hospice care, where she could die with dignity, without pain." "And the life insurance?" "It was Carol's idea. She wanted to secure Anna's future. I didn't even want to talk about it, but she insisted. Michael ran his hands through his hair. I know how it sounds, but... And the savior complex? Victoria's voice was cold, clinical. Michael stopped. That had been the most painful part of the psychiatric report he had had to undergo during the investigation. The psychiatrist said that maybe I save others because I couldn't save Carol. That I look for situations where I can be the hero because I failed when it mattered most. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. Is that why you saved me? To feel better about yourself? No. The answer came immediately, from the depths of his being. I saved you because you're a person and you were in danger. Whatever happened after what, Michael? Her voice cracked slightly. Was that also part of your personal therapy? You know it wasn't. Michael moved closer again, and this time she didn't step back. What happened between us last night was real. What I feel for you and Anna is real. How can I be sure? Tears finally began to fall down Victoria's cheeks. My whole world is telling me you're a manipulator, that you saw a lonely rich woman and decided to take advantage of her. Victoria's phone rang. She ignored it the first 3 times, but Michael could see in her expression that she knew she had to answer. What? She asked abruptly. Ms. Vance, it was Liam's voice, the board has made a decision. If you don't immediately fire Mr. Johnson and make a public statement distancing yourself from him, they're going to call for a vote of no confidence against you. Victoria closed her eyes. How many votes do they have? Enough, ma'am. Your uncle has been very convincing. Michael saw the exact moment Victoria made her decision. He saw how all the walls he had managed to tear down the night before were rebuilt in seconds. I understand, she said into the phone. Prepare the termination papers for Mr. Johnson and schedule a press conference for this afternoon. She hung up the phone and looked at Michael with eyes that had become distant and professional. Victoria, don't do this, Michael pleaded. Fight for us. Us? Her laugh was bitter. Michael, we've known each other for 3 days. You have a daughter to support and I have a company to run. We can't let a momentary attraction destroy everything we've built. This isn't a momentary attraction and you know it. Do I? Victoria walked to her desk and took out a sheet of paper. This is your termination letter. It includes a generous severance, enough to support Anna comfortably for a year while you find something better. Michael took the paper with trembling hands. Is that it? After everything we shared last night? Last night was a mistake. The words came out mechanically, as if she had rehearsed them. I confused gratitude with something deeper, and you took advantage of that confusion. You don't even believe that yourself. Victoria finally looked him directly in the eyes. Michael, even if I believed your feelings were genuine, what kind of future could we have? You're a widower with a little girl. I'm a CEO with responsibilities to hundreds of employees. We live in completely different worlds. Worlds that connected for a reason. Worlds that connected by accident. Victoria walked toward her office door and opened it. Goodbye, Michael. I hope you find the peace you're looking for. Michael stopped in the doorway. Do you know the difference between you and me, Victoria? She didn't answer, but she also didn't close the door. I lost the woman I loved and learned that life is too short to waste second chances. You lost your sister and decided you don't deserve second chances. Michael turned to look at her one last time. But cowardice isn't going to bring Carol back. It's just going to guarantee that you stay lonely. The words hit Victoria like a physical slap. She took a step toward him, as if to reply, but then stopped. Go, Michael, please. Michael left the office and walked to the elevator. As he waited, he could hear Victoria closing her office door more forcefully than necessary. In the elevator, looking at his reflection in the steel doors, Michael realized something terrible. For the first time in 2 years, he had hoped again. He had believed again that he could have a full life, a family, love, and in 3 days everything had been destroyed. When he reached the ground floor, Joe was waiting for him with a cardboard box. I'm sorry, man, Joe said, avoiding his gaze. Orders from upstairs. You have 5 minutes to get your stuff. Michael nodded silently and put his few belongings in the box. As he headed toward the exit, he could see through the lobby windows that a group of reporters was gathering outside. The story had already reached the media. His phone vibrated with a text message from an unknown number. Too bad it didn't work out, Johnson. But don't worry. I have more information about your past that might interest certain investigators. Stay away from my niece, RV. Michael deleted the message and kept walking. Outside, the reporters swarmed him with cameras and microphones, but he kept moving without saying a word. In 4 hours, he would have to pick Anna up from school. He would have to explain why he no longer worked at Ms. Victoria's company. He would have to look for work again, to return to the survival routine that had been his life before he met the woman who had reminded him what it felt like to be alive. But as he walked the streets of Charlotte, Michael knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Victoria may have convinced herself that she was protecting him and her company, but Michael had seen the truth in her eyes. She loved him as much as he loved her. And if there was one thing 2 years of grief had taught him, it was that he didn't give up easily on the people he loved. Part 5. 3 weeks had passed since Michael had left the Rosales Corporation with a cardboard box and a broken heart. The severance Victoria had included in his termination was generous, but Michael hadn't touched a penny. The money was in an account he didn't plan to use. Accepting it would feel like validating all the accusations that he had been an opportunist. Instead, he had returned to his old life, cleaning offices at night, landscaping jobs on weekends, and the constant search for something more stable. But now, everything was harder. His name had appeared in the local newspapers, and although the articles didn't directly accuse him of anything, the insinuations were enough to make potential employers look at him with suspicion. Anna had noticed the change immediately. Michael tried to maintain a normal facade, but it was impossible to hide the sadness that had settled back in his eyes. The girl had stopped asking about Victoria after the first week, but Michael could see in her expression that she understood that something important had broken. "Dad," Anna said one morning as they ate cheap cereal at the small kitchen table, "is Miss Victoria mad at me?" The question hit Michael like a punch to the stomach. "Why do you think that, sweetheart?" "Because you said we were her friends, but friends don't just disappear like that." Anna played with her cereal, avoiding his gaze. "Did I do something wrong at dinner?" Michael knelt down next to his daughter's chair and took her small hands. "Anna, my princess, you didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault." "Then why can't she be our friend?" Michael struggled to find words that an 8-year-old could understand. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people are afraid of good things because they don't think they deserve them." While Michael struggled with explanations he didn't have, Victoria was in her office on the 25th floor, surrounded by the successful company she had saved, but feeling more empty than ever. The 3 weeks since Michael's termination had been the most productive of her professional career. She had closed the deal with the Japanese investors, increased profits by 15%, and silenced all her leadership critics. But every victory felt hollow. Liam entered her office with the weekly reports, but Victoria barely looked at them. Instead, she found herself looking out the window toward the street where she had met Michael. "Ms. Vance?" Liam looked at her with concern. "Are you okay?" "I'm perfectly fine," she replied automatically, but they both knew it was a lie. Victoria had returned to her old routine, arriving at the office at 6 in the morning, working until 10 at night, having dinner alone in her penthouse, repeating. It was the life she had had before Michael, the life that had worked for years, but now every silent moment was filled with memories of Anna's laughter, deep conversations with Michael, the feeling of being truly seen for the first time in years. "Liam," she said suddenly, "have you ever regretted something you knew was the right thing to do?" Her assistant looked at her in surprise. In 5 years of working for her, Victoria had never asked a personal question. "Many times, ma'am." "How do you live with that?" Liam slowly sat down in the chair in front of her desk. "Can I speak frankly?" Victoria nodded. "I think you did what you thought was best for the company, but the company isn't the only thing in life." Liam paused, choosing his words carefully. "My wife always says that the right decisions for business aren't always the right decisions for the heart." Victoria felt tears threatening to fall. What if the heart is wrong? And what if it's not? The question hung in the air between them. Victoria turned to the window, remembering Michael's words the last time she had seen him. "Cowardice isn't going to bring Carol back. It's just going to guarantee that you stay lonely." That afternoon, as Michael picked Anna up from school, his daughter did something completely unexpected. Instead of walking home, she stopped in front of the Rosales Corporation building. "Anna, what are you doing?" "I need to talk to Ms. Victoria," Anna said with a determination that surprised Michael. "Sweetheart, we can't." "Dad, you taught me that when someone is sad, you have to help them. And Ms. Victoria is sad." "How do you know that?" Anna pointed up toward the windows of the 25th floor. "Liam told me." Michael followed his daughter's gaze, confused. "When did you talk to Liam?" "Yesterday. When you went to the job interview downtown, I came here." Anna raised her chin defiantly. "I asked the security guard if I could send a message to Ms. Victoria." Michael felt panic and pride at the same time. "Anna, you can't do things like that alone. It's dangerous." "I wasn't alone. Liam came down to talk to me." Anna crossed her arms. "He told me that Ms. Victoria hasn't smiled once since you left, and that sometimes he hears her crying in her office." Michael's heart sped up. "What else did Liam tell you?" "That she asks about us. That she wants to know if we're okay, but she can't ask directly." Anna took Michael's hand. "Dad, why do adults make things so complicated? If they love each other, why can't they be together?" Michael knelt down in front of his daughter in the middle of the sidewalk. "It's complicated, sweetheart." "It's not complicated," Anna insisted. "Mum told me before she died that love is simple. Everything else is what's complicated." At that moment, Michael saw Liam coming out of the building. Victoria's assistant saw them immediately and approached with an expression that mixed nervousness and hope. "Mr. Johnson," Liam said, extending his hand. "I'm glad to see you." "Liam," Michael shook his hand, studying his face. "Anna told me you talked yesterday." "Yes, she's a very smart girl." Liam looked at Anna with affection, and very direct. "She asked me questions that we adults are afraid to ask." "How is she?" Michael couldn't help but ask. Liam sighed. "Terrible. She works 18 hours a day, barely eats, and—" He stopped, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "Mr. Johnson, I shouldn't tell you this, but she misses you terribly." "Liam," Anna said suddenly, "can you help us go up and see Miss Victoria?" "Anna, no," Michael began, but Liam interrupted him. "Mr. Johnson, there's something you need to know." Liam looked nervously toward the building. "The investigation that Mr. Robert Vance presented about you wasn't completely honest." Michael felt his heart stop. "What do you mean?" "After you left, I felt bad about having to read those accusations, so I did my own research." Liam took a folder out of his briefcase. "Your wife's family officially withdrew their complaint against you 2 days after they filed it. They said it had been a misunderstanding caused by grief." Michael took the folder with trembling hands. "Why wasn't that in the report?" "Because Mr. Vance only included the original complaint, not the withdrawal." "And the psychiatric report?" Liam paused. "It was taken out of context. The psychiatrist recommended that you had a natural instinct to help others, which was healthy for your grieving process." Anna tugged on Michael's sleeve. "Does that mean Miss Victoria can be our friend again?" Michael didn't answer immediately. He was processing the information, feeling a mix of anger and hope. "Does Victoria know this?" "No. Mr. Vance made sure she only saw the edited version." Liam looked up toward the office windows. "But there's more. I found out who took the photos of you two that night." "Who?" "A private investigator hired by Mr. Vance. He's been watching Ms. Vance for months, waiting for some scandal he could use against her." Michael closed his eyes, feeling a cold fury growing in his chest. "How long has he been planning this?" "Since she refused to marry his business partner's son last year. Mr. Vance had arranged that union to strengthen his position in the company." Liam moved closer, lowering his voice. "Mr. Johnson, Mr. Vance is planning another move. He has scheduled a board meeting for next week where he's going to propose his own candidacy as CEO. Based on what?" "On the fact that Victoria is emotionally unstable and makes irrational decisions based on feelings instead of business logic." Liam looked disgusted. "He's using your relationship with her as evidence that she's unfit to lead." Anna had been listening to everything carefully. Suddenly she turned to Liam with the seriousness of an adult. "Does Miss Victoria know they're going to take her job?" "She suspects it, but she doesn't have proof of any of this." Anna turned to Michael. "Dad, you have to go up and tell her the truth." "Anna, it's not that simple." "Yes, it is." Anna took Michael's hand and Liam's. "Ms. Victoria is in trouble because she defended us. Now we have to defend her." Michael looked up at the building that had been his workplace for barely a week, but which had changed his life forever. Victoria was up there, probably working alone in her office, unaware that the people who had manipulated her into pushing him away were planning to destroy everything she had worked for. "Liam," Michael said slowly, "what would happen if Victoria had all the real evidence before that meeting? She could defend herself. She could expose what her uncle has been doing." Liam looked at him hopefully. "Are you thinking of helping her?" "I'm thinking of fighting for the woman I love," Michael said, and it was the first time he had admitted out loud what he felt for Victoria. Anna clapped excitedly. "Yes, like the knights in the stories." Michael laughed for the first time in 3 weeks. "I'm not a knight, Princess. I'm just a man who made the mistake of giving up too easily." "So, are we going up?" Anna asked, tugging his hand toward the building entrance. "Not today," Michael said, but when he saw his daughter's disappointed expression, he added, "But soon. First, I need to make sure I have everything I need to really help her." He turned to Liam. "Can you get me copies of all the real investigation and evidence that Robert Vance has been watching her?" "Yes, but it will be risky. If he finds out what I'm doing, I understand the risk, and I understand if you don't want to take it." Liam smiled for the first time since the conversation had begun. "Mr. Johnson,